In 2013, my husband and I, after years of infertility, we were blessed and shocked to find out that we were expecting triplets. We were pregnant with two girls, identical girls, and a boy, and it was a whirlwind. It was so exciting because we had wanted children. We were meant to be parents, and we had wanted children more than anything. So it was not an easy pregnancy. We knew it would be high risk. Everything was going great, and I loved it. I had that pregnancy glow, but at 18 weeks, we started having complications. We almost lost our children there through some complications, and I landed on hospital bed rest, and we just prayed for a miracle. Every day we kind of celebrated. We counted down to try to get to that 23-week, 24, 25-week gestation because we knew the statistics and we knew the chances of survival if they're born so early. Unfortunately, my water broke at 20 weeks, and at 22 weeks gestation, 22 weeks and 5 days, I went into labor. A day later, 22 weeks and 6 days, our first daughter, Abby, she was born, and she had a harder route. She was our fighter, and we always say she saved their lives because she was such a fighter. She passed away 2 hours after she was born. She had just the weaker lungs and just couldn't survive, but she stayed inside and kept growing and kept helping our other two grow. So we always say she's our guardian angel. Unfortunately, I started getting very sick and I had to deliver them. So they were born late at night and they were whisked off to the NICU. They were both born and alive. And I remember looking at our OB/GYN and thinking, you know, is there any chance on these two? We just lost one. Do you think one of them might survive? And she just she didn't say anything. She just looked and shook her head no. So we knew the answer, and I just assumed I was delivering two children and that we would leave the hospital without our 3 children. I received 2 liters of blood. And it's because of that helped save my life. I woke up in the ICU and spent several days there trying to, gain some strength, and found out that, we had 2 children that were fighting in the NICU. Peyton and Parker, they were each 1 pound, and Abby, they were all 1 pound at birth, just over a pound. And Parker, he dipped down to 14 ounces, which is amazing that a little baby so tiny can live. And Peyton was exactly 16 ounces. So we started the NICU journey, and they went through a lot of issues. Peyton had a grade 3 brain bleed, which is very serious, and she had a PDA, which is considered a hole in her heart. She had very weak lungs, and we had a lot of ups and downs there with her. And with our son Parker, he lived for about 2 months. He passed away after 55 days in the NICU. He had what was called necrotitis enterocolitis, a perforation in the bowels, and so they did surgery when he was 3 weeks old, and he survived. But unfortunately, we found out weeks later that he had a brain injury, and the stress of surgery caused that. So he passed away after 55 days. During their time and during Peyton's entire time there, she spent about 4 months in the NICU, they received a lot of blood, and it was a lot smaller amounts than what I received, but we always chuckled because you could tell when it was their day to get blood, they just had more energy, and the nurses always said, okay, it's time for that little blood, and they just get this, you can just see their stats and everything just got better because they needed that blood. So now with my survivor, Peyton, she spent 4 months in the hospital, came home on oxygen, had a lot of issues early on and developmental delays, worked with a team of therapists and doctors and nurses, and at 3 years old graduated everything. She's in 1st grade, doing excellent. She's good at math, which, these were some of the things that doctors said, she's going to struggle in certain aspects in life, and we haven't seen any of that. She's reading at a 3rd grade level. She's just amazing. And we always chuckle, though, because I tell her that, we both received blood, and it saved our lives. So we call it the superhero powers. So it was because we both needed that. And so we always say, I wonder who gave us that blood. We have, superhero powers. So it's life-saving for sure. about an hour after I delivered, they noticed I was getting sick once again, and I was very weak and I couldn't stop bleeding. So I once again received blood transfusion, and it saved my life again. And it's amazing to see how I remember looking at my husband, and I remember saying, I feel like death. I was very pale. I had oxygen, nose cannula in, and they were doing everything they could to avoid another surgery for me. And I just felt so weak and sick. And within 2 hours, having a blood transfusion, I bounced back. I had color in me, and I felt so much better. And it was life-saving. I remember about a year after my children were born, my husband was looking for something to do to honor our son. You know, we do many things throughout the years to honor our children, and on the anniversary of his death, he went and donated blood. And it was just his way of giving back, because, you know, you just feel helpless as a parent, and for him as a father and a husband to watch what I went through and to watch what our children went through, this was such a selfless act that he could do. So he's donated, you know, every year since then.